So good afternoon, everybody. That's pretty good. Let me try that again, though. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Oh, so the coffee's kicked in and everybody's getting here. So a lot of times I pick videos based upon what I think is going to help resonate most with everybody here. And the video I picked this week when I did this, I am thankful, is because it really resonates with me. I went on this mission, or not really a mission trip. I went on a planning trip. You know, people call it a mission trip, and I really went there to help plan for what we were going to do in the future and what we were going to do. And I was in the Philippines this last week, and after spending the week there, the 5 days I was actually away from here, is that I really could appreciate and be thankful, and really be thankful for the little things. We have first world problems here. When I mean by first world problems, we worry about our cell phones. We worry about what car we drive. We worry about these different things. And I was in a country where they don't worry about anything that we worry about. They worry about having food to eat. They don't even worry about running water. They don't worry about having a bathroom inside of their house. They don't worry about those things. They worry about the relationships they have and the people they talk to. And it made me realize on how thankful I am for the stuff that we have and for what God has already done. And it made me really realize that we have so much to be thankful for, is that we really need to be giving, more giving. And as a church, you guys may have saw this last week that I posted on our Facebook page that I want us to follow our core values. And our core values is that we're going to do anything we can to reach this community short of sinning. And really, if you have an idea, if you have a way to reach it, then please write it down on a connection card. Let me know anything that we'll do. If you have a way that we can reach the unchurched, then I want to do that. But really, the last one is the important one: is that we're going to give like no other church is giving. I just watching what happens over there and seeing what happened is that we're going to give. I went to a home of the senior. I went to the senior pastor's mother's house while I was there, and I walked into her home, and it was the size of probably like my bathroom at home, and it didn't have a floor. It was just dirt, and it really didn't have walls. They were just like the walls were once there, but then they just hung curtains in order to maintain some sort of privacy, and it was very, very disheartening, and it was you just watch it and you go, I looked at it and I said, I could fix this in like 20 minutes. I mean, why is this like this? Why is this going on? And it's because they don't have the money to fix it. They just don't have the ability to be able to fix it. They don't even have the knowledge on how to fix it. They don't have any idea how to cut the wood and put it up. And it really made me look and go, we can make changes and we can do so much. Even a church that's, we're a growing and small church, but as much as the size that we are, we can do something that can have a global impact. And so when we met, they said they wanted to become part of the Edge, and we were like, we would love to have you part of the Edge. And we were going to make a commitment to be able to give and to be able to help support and help change over there. But it starts here. It starts here, and it really starts in reaching this community and giving in this community. Because if you can't do it at home, it's very hard to do it abroad. And so I really want you guys to be challenged by the video that I played and to be thankful and to really look at it and go, I really, really, really want us to look and go, we can make changes. We can start looking at things a whole different light. And we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit in today's service. We're going to talk about, as we dive into this new series called The Counselor. I don't know how many of you have ever been to counseling, and I don't want you to tell me that you've been to counseling. But I don't know how many of you have ever been to counseling, but I've gone through counseling. I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy to have somebody you talk to and kind of bounce ideas off of. But I think most of us, we've all had somebody that we talk to, that we've asked questions, that we've, whether it's a counselor or a professional person, but we've always had somebody that we bounce ideas off and we go, hey, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? In the Bible, there's 100 different times that Jesus has asked questions. He's asked why this or why that. We're going to focus on 4 of them over the next 4 weeks. This week and the next 3 weeks, we're going to focus on a few things on what Jesus said after and why some people ask some questions and what did he ask? What did he ask us in return? Because, there wasn't a whole lot of times where Jesus said a straight answer. When somebody goes like, what are you here for? And he was like, oh, I'm going to be hung on that cross to save you. He never came out and said it like that. He always said, well, I'm here to do God's work. He didn't come out and just give us that knowledge. It's like, here's the, and it's the same thing that a counselor does with you. When you meet with a counselor, he asks lots of questions and he hopes that you'll kind of figure it out on your own. He doesn't go, well, you should do this, 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 and this. They want you to kind of figure it out. Well, this is the same thing he does. That's the reason why he spoke in parables. He was, listen to what you're saying and understand this. You can figure it out. You can. And so we're going to really dive in today where we're going to talk about why are you so afraid? Because he asked that. Why are you so afraid? Sometimes we're in a storm and we're just terrified. And that storm could be finances. That storm could be whatever. And we just get terrified and we just go, man, why am I so afraid? And then some of us, we get to this point where we go, I need a miracle. I do. I need a miracle. And when Jesus was asked that, I need a miracle, and he goes, do you believe that I can do this? Do you believe that I can do it? Some of us are facing just ongoing challenges, things that happen over and over and over again in our lives. And then the real question is, do you want to be well? This is what Jesus asked. Do you want to be well? Do you want to change that? We're going to talk about that in 3 weeks. And then the week of Easter, as we're kind of doing, one of the things that we haven't announced is that we are doing a Good Friday service. And so that week we're going to do Good Friday, but also, and it'll be it won't be part of the counselor series. It'll be something different, but it's going to be, that weekend we're talking about what spiritual doubts, because a lot of times we have spiritual doubts. We all do. Something happens and things change in our lives. And the question is why do we doubt? Jesus asks us, why do you doubt? But today, what I want you to do is if you have a Bible with you, I want you to open up to Mark 4. If you don't have a Bible, we can get you one. We can have somebody bring you one. But open up to Mark 4. And we're going to read from verses 35 through 41. And that's kind of where we're going to start at. But I really want you to do is that in the beginning, before we get there, is that Jesus is in Galilee and he's teaching. And he started out with this small group that he was teaching with. As he's standing there, it starts growing and growing and growing. And they force him to the point where he has to get on a boat. And he goes out in the middle to where they can start, because they start filling the area. And so he gets into this area, and so they start, and he's teaching from the front. He's teaching out of like a pulpit type area, and we can use this as the example, is that if we kept getting crowded, you guys know that you guys wouldn't come up and sit on the stage. You would just, I would get further and further back. This is the same thing, but it also works beneficial for them. It's because the water helps carry the sound, and they're in a valley. And Jesus is teaching, and after this day, and I will tell you, is that after you get up and you teach all day long, you guys were here last week. Last week was very emotional for me, and I get through, and I get at the end of the day, and I just go, man, I just really want to rest. And this is what happens with Jesus. At the end of the day, he just wants to rest. And what happens is he gives them some instructions. And so Mark 4, and he says, in verse 35, it says, that day when evening came, he said to his disciples, let us go on over to the other side. Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. And then a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat. And it was nearly swamped. And Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, Teacher, don't you care if we drown? And he got up and he rebuked the wind and he said to the waves, quiet, be still. And then the wind died down and it was completely calm. And he said to his disciples, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? And they were terrified and asked each other, who is this that even the wind obeys him? Now, I want to tell you something, is that give you a little more clear depiction of what it is. The Sea of Galilee is 680 feet below sea level, and it's in a valley. Okay, it's in this area. It's a valley that have hills that surround all of it. And so what happens is, and we live in this area where we get to see it every once in a while, especially if you drive towards San Francisco or any of those areas, you get to see the storm come over the hills. You can see it come, but it happens fast sometimes. If you've ever been to a baseball game at night in the city, you can watch the fog pour in over the top of the stadium. It gets cold and it happens fast. Well, it's the same thing that happens there, is that it comes in, the storm comes in over the hills, and it comes in fast, and it onsets, and the wind is coming in, and the wind is what really causes these huge waves. And the people on the boat, his disciples, are terrified. They are going, what is going on? Why is this happening? We've got the Son of God with us. Why? Can you believe that we're getting ready to drown? This is how we get when our storms come into our lives, isn't it? The storm comes into our lives and we start getting this and we go, oh, that just came out of nowhere. What happened? Well, sometimes we usually bring it on ourselves. It didn't really come out of nowhere. But this is what we get. We go, I'm doing life with Jesus. I'm following him. I'm following his word. Why was I blindsided by this storm? Where did this come from? What happened? What are you doing? What are you doing in your life? When you start looking at things and you start going, why was I blindsided to this? Why was I blindsided by the layoff? Well, the doctor's report came back and it just took me off completely guard. My child's report card showed up and she had 3 F's on it. You don't look like you're in a storm sometimes, but your two house payments behind. You're in a storm. You have something going on. Everybody thinks, oh, their marriage is so great. They're doing, it's so amazing. But the whole way here, you argued in the car, and as soon as you hit the driveway, you said, put that happy face on. Let's do this. Hey, it's perfect. Things are magical. Yes. As soon as you get right back out of the parking lot. Cannot believe you said that. That happens. That's the reason why Melissa and I have to drive in separate cars here. No. Some of us, we go, I don't have any problems. I just don't have any. My life is perfect. But then you get home at night, and you toss and turn, and you can't get to sleep. And you roll and roll, or maybe it's the complete opposite, where you cry yourself to sleep. And you just don't know what you did to deserve this. God, what did I do? Why is this going on? Why is it that I don't have the relationship I'm looking for? Why is it I don't have this? I don't have any problems. Things are perfect. With tears in your eyes. We all get blindsided by a storm at some time. There's 2 things to remember, though, when we get hit with a storm. And a lot of times we forget it. Especially when we're doing life with Jesus, we expect the waters to be perfectly calm all the time. But there's really 2 things to remember. Is that when you're in the storm, you're with his presence. He's there with you. You're in the storm with his presence. And, it tells us, if you go back to Mark 4, verses 37 through 38, it says the squall comes up and the waves broke over the boat so that they were nearly swamped. But Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. We go, God, if you're here with me, why is this happening? I don't understand. Why is this going on? If you're here, why am I going through this? Well, I'm here with you. I'm going through it with you. I'm here to support you. What are you doing? We're going through this together. But we don't do that. I tell you is that having Jesus on board doesn't mean that the storm's not going to rock you. It does. It just means that it's not going to sink your ship. Having him on board just means that it's not going to be the end. That you're going to be able to go through and you're going to be able to keep getting through it and doing life, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to face trials. He told us, in fact, he promised us that everything that I'm going through, you're going to experience worse. You're going to go through worse and they're going to come after you more than they came after me. They crucified him. I mean, look, we're all able to walk around. None of us have any holes in our hands. We've got a long ways to go. There's going to be some storms. The problem is that most of us bring the storms on ourselves. He didn't tell us, hey, let's get in the boat. Let's go across the sea because we need to go reach them. Because he wanted you to go, hey, let me go pursue this car because I have to have a better car. God, I can't drive this 20-year-old pickup. Nope, that was you. That was all you. He didn't say, I want to get in financial trouble, so I'm going to have a $185 cell phone bill. I got to have the brand new iPhone. By the way, there's a 6 coming out. Nope, he didn't say that. He didn't do that. He didn't tell you in your life to do everything to pursue money. He didn't tell you, surround your life to where all you do is pursue money. And so all you worry about is what's in here. You don't go, oh, God, you provided for me. Nope, you go, what is it going to take for me to get more of this? That's what your life is. None of that matters. None of that matters. I was just in a country where they didn't have any of that stuff for a lot of people. None of it. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the cars. They didn't have the phones. They didn't care about it. But our whole lives are surrounded, and we have to do all this to get to these things. What does any of this matter? What difference does any of this make? None of it makes a thing. We look at this and go, why is it that we have to go through all these trials, and why do we bring these storms on ourselves? For some possessions, for some things. We have to start changing what we're doing. We have to remember is that if we're doing his plan, the storms won't sink us. It's our plans that sink us. It's our things that drag us down. He is with you. Even in the storm, he is with you. You know, there's studies that are out there that show that when you have something that lives in the house with you, that you live longer. You know, it's just how it is. So if you have if at home and you get older, you have an animal at home, you will live longer. So you have a dog, you have maybe a hamster, you have, a bird, a rabbit, whatever it is, right? A hedgehog. You can go all the way down the line. Maybe a few cats. Maybe some cats that leave you alone, but you still have to feed them. But those things will make it to where you live longer. Can you imagine if you have Jesus in your life, how much longer you will live? When you start going, I'm going to do life. I'm going to follow him. Can you imagine how much that responsibility is so much greater than the animals at home? It's so much greater. I'm going to follow along with you, God. The responsibility is so much greater than going, I have to take care of these kids or these cats or this dog or whatever it is. Why? Because you go, I have to go and take care of everybody. There was more people, even in this story, he says, we're going to go over there where there's more people hurting. We're going to go. What are we going to do? When you walk out of here today, who's hurting that you're going to? Is your spouse hurting? Is your family hurting? Are you going, I'm going to go there and take care of this? Because so often we go, I'm doing what God has asked me to do. He said, love. He said, do life with one another. I was just in an area where their whole focus was doing life. Doing life with one another. They got together almost every day. They did youth. They did children's services. They did all these different things. They got together all the time. They did life together and loved one another. It wasn't about possessions. It was about helping and loving and doing what God has asked them to do. No, we want to go off and chase after stuff. Got to have this and I got to have that. I asked him, I said, how are you doing this? How does this continue to happen? I'm not doing it by myself. It's his power. It's his strength. His grace. It's his presence. So what we need to remember is that never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. You can never let the presence of a storm doubt the presence of God, because sometimes he's riding right along with us. That no matter what we're going through, that if we're going, I'm following you, he's right along with us. Even sometimes while we're chasing after this. Sometimes we need to go through those storms in order to where this isn't the priority in life. Why did I go through a storm? Why did I travel 14,000 miles in a 4-day period? Why? Because I needed to go through that in order to really change my focus and change the mindset and look at it and go, God, I want to follow the plan that you have for me. Even if that means that's going to be uncomfortable and I want to go through some storms. I'm going to do what you've asked me to do. We need to change and we need to start focusing that way. Instead of trying to do it on our own over and over and over again. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. He goes, God is my refuge, my strength. He is ever present when we're in trouble. Never leave me. He promises. He will never leave me. He will never forsake me. And though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and you can just keep going and going, God's promises are there. It's us that run from it. It's us that go, I'm going to go do my own thing. Sometimes we're in the storm for his purpose. Sometimes we have to go through the storm for his purpose. Jesus once said, he comes out and he goes, it's time for us to get in the boat and go to the other side. There's other people on the east side of this lake that are hurting. that we need to go over there. The trip was his idea. It wasn't one of these things that they came out of nowhere. The trip was his idea. He said, get in the boat, we're going over there. So he knew that the storm was coming. He knew that these things was going on. He knew that what was going to be planned. He was like, we got to go. And that's what they did. They took off. They went across, and they followed the instructions. They didn't experience the storm because they were out of God's will. They didn't experience that. They actually experienced the storm because they were in God's will. They were following what they asked them to do, and that's why they experienced it. Sometimes God is going to call us to do things, and it's going to take us going through a storm to get there. Hey, I will tell you what happens. A family comes to church, and one person accepts Christ. Well, guess what? The other ones are going to be like, hey, why did that happen? What's going on? It's a storm right at the beginning. We experience it almost from the start of following Christ. We go, I'm going to follow God. I'm going to follow his plan for me. And the rest of the family goes, what's wrong with you? It's the storm. And we're going to experience them all through our walk, all through what we're going through. And sometimes they are to follow Jesus. The storms are there to follow him. Sometimes it's going to be difficult. And you're going to look at it and go, why am I doing this? Because God asked you to do this. Now, I'm not saying that God causes the storms. I'm not saying he caused it or he allowed it. Maybe, maybe not. I can't come out and say that. But what I can tell you is that if God caused it or allowed it, he caused it for his will. He caused it because he wanted to use it. You know, it's always what happens. It always happens that way, is that if God causes you to go through a storm, he wants to use that storm for you to do something with it. Whether it's grow, whether it's to get bigger, whether it's to do something in his faith, I don't know what he wants to use your storm for. All I know is that when you're following him and you go through a storm, that he wants to use it. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kind, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work in you so that you may be mature and be complete and not lacking in anything. Something they needed to learn, something that needed to happen, something that they couldn't learn in any other way. You know, I mean, can you imagine you're following along with him, and how other way you're going to learn that he can calm the sea? And how other way you're going to learn that he can stop the winds from blowing? They had to experience that. And they had to be terrified. They had to be going, teacher, do you want us to drown? Do you want us to go through this? How else are you going to learn that? How else was I going to learn that I needed to be able to change my focus and start going, I need to be over there and I need to reach over there without going through what I did? I will tell you is that I walked through the villages. You know, where we stayed at was 2.5 hours outside of Manila. And so as I was walking through, you know, Manila is one of these cities it's still dirty, it's fast-paced, it never shuts down. But you leave Manila, and you get into these rural areas, and you get into these areas where there's nothing. I mean, there's some buses and there's some cars, and they're trying to do these things, but it is broken. It is broke. It is, and as I walk through the cities, I go, I can help here. But it pulled on the heartstrings. I can do this. I can change this. I can make this better. I can, you know, as I said before, as I was standing in the house, I could go, it'd take me 20 minutes to make this better. Why don't they do something about this? Because they can't. They don't have the skills. They don't have the lumber. They don't have the things that are needed to do it. You know, I was told earlier is that why does that happen? It's because God needed me to see it so we could start making a change. So we could start doing something different about it. It's because we have to experience these storms and we have to see it because, and I'm telling you, everything that I tell you right now, if you've never been there, you're trying to imagine how it looks here, and it doesn't look that way here. It doesn't. There is nothing here that you can compare to it. There's nothing here that you can look and go, that's how it is over there. There's nothing here that you can go, that's how it looks, because it doesn't. They take a single piece of property and they will build 50 houses on it, and they all share a room. It is I look at it and go, man, we could make such an impact. But it starts here. We had to learn, and I had to go over there and see it, but now we start moving forward. We go, okay, how do we change it? How do we grow? How do we do it better? I can't tell you if God caused it, because I really caused that. But they brought him here. But he allowed it. He put it in place. He allowed the financing for the trip to happen. He allowed all these things to go on, and he allowed me to go over there so God could use it. I will tell you is that I sat and I watched them during a children's service, and I watched on Friday as kids were dancing around, and I have pictures, and you guys will all see this stuff here in the next week. It just took me a little bit to get everything kind of prepared for tonight or for today. But when you look at these kids, there were 70 of them. And most of them didn't have shoes. They were walking around, and over there's not a lot of places that have solid floors, and so the floors are either dirt, maybe they're wood, but it's really, it's not an easy surface to travel on barefoot. And so so most of these kids, and then if they did have shoes, they didn't fit them. And if they had shoes, and some of them even had shoes that were like 4-inch tall high heels. It was really, really, I was going, well, why would you have like a 4-year-old or 5-year-old running around with because they couldn't find any other shoes. They couldn't afford to buy any other shoes. They were like, this is what we have, you can wear these. And it was very, very difficult. And I was talking to the leadership of the church over there, and I was talking to, Steve and Yolanda, who are our missionaries over there. I was speaking with them, and I go, what would it cost to reshoe everybody? What would it cost for us to put shoes on every one of these children that come to church here, to where they can have a pair of shoes? And she goes, well, maybe 50 pesos a child. Maybe 70 pesos a child. Guess what? The exchange rate, guys, is 44 to 1. So it's $1, maybe $2 per child. She's all, we could probably get it done for $120 US. Well, then do it. Let's get it done. Why are we waiting here on the sidelines and watching children suffer? Why? It's because we don't know and we didn't experience the storm. Now that we're experiencing the storm, we can make a change, and we can really sit there and go, we are going to have a global mission, and we are going to do something. But it starts here as well. What changes can we make here? What can we do different here? What can we go off and go, I want this to be different? Because it starts here. For $100 there, we can reshoe 70 kids. Most of us, $100 is almost nothing. It's a lot of money, but it's almost, like, I can come up with $100. I'll go mow some lawns if I have to. That's how much of an impact you can make in another country. You can put shoes on 75 children. But you have to experience the storm. And you have to maybe go out and walk without shoes on and know what it's really like and go, it's hot and it burns. Because, guys, I was over there. There was never a day it was below 90 degrees. The humidity was hot. You get out of the shower, the humidity was 99%. You get out, you feel like you need a shower right away. I'm telling you, we can make a change, but we needed to experience it. We needed to go through it, and we need to see what's happening. And that perseverance that develops when you go through those trials and you look at it and go, what am I going to do to change it? Because I'm certainly not going to worry about that for myself anymore. It's just literally, I threw the amount of money on the floor that they need, because I would rather them have it than me. I don't need it. I don't need it like they do. It's so enlightening to go over, and I would tell you is that we're going to go in September, and so it's going to be a cost of about $1,500 for each person to go, but I start saving now. Start saving, because you need to go. Your whole outlook, and I will tell you, will change, and you will come back and you'll go, you will figure out ways to help. You'll figure it out. You will have a whole shift in what you're thinking, and if you were ever raised in a country like that, then you already know what I'm talking about. And you know what's going on. If you've been to a place where it's like that, then you know that we are so blessed here with first world problems. We are so blessed here. We fear this financial collapse. Most of us, we go, gosh, what are you going to do? And, what's going to happen when all these banks collapse? Nothing. We'll continue doing life. We'll continue going through it. The problem is that we need to remove this faith that we have in the bank. And we need to have faith in what God can do. We live in this, we go, oh, God, you're the one that's in control, but we live as if the bank is in control. I got to get this credit card payment in. I got to do this. I got to do that. Some of us are skewed. Our vision is so skewed that we watch and we go, I got to make this credit card payment rather than feed our children at home. We really need to have some sort of focus here and because you're going through these trials, maybe it's time to change what you're pursuing and start pursuing God, because then when you're going through trials, you know that it's for a purpose. You know that I'm following you, God, and I know that these things are happening so that I can become better. They come out and they go, teacher, we're going to drown. Teacher, we're going to drown. What are you going to do? He got up and he rebuked the waves. He said, quiet, be still. And the wind died down and it was completely calm. And he said to his disciples, and here's where it gets important, and I have it underlined in the notes. It says, why are you so afraid? Why are you so afraid? What is wrong? And the next line is the most profound one. And he comes out and he goes, do you still have no faith? Why are you so afraid? Do you have no faith? Do you know who you're with? Do you have any idea who's with you right now? Then they were terrified. And they asked one another, and they go, who is this? Who is this? Even the wind will listen to him. And you just hear this and you go, who is this? Why are we so afraid? And where are we putting our faith at? We put our faith in the credit card companies. We'll put our faith in the bank. We put our faith in other people. We put our faith in all these different things. Why are you afraid? Where's your faith at? What are you starting to pursue? What are you after? Because your fears will start subsiding when you start chasing after what God wants you to have. And you start producing and you start going, my faith is here and in his plan for my life. You'll find that you sleep much easier. You will find that you don't have anxieties. And then when they come up, you go, God, I know you're taking me through something. I know you're delivering me. I know that you're taking me to where you want me to go. Instead of going, they're going to take my house. And if you're following God's plan, then it doesn't matter. I will tell you is that, why are you afraid? You're afraid because you don't have any faith. Or you have faith and you have it in whatever it is. You know, in Revelations, there's a line and it says, if you're lukewarm, I'll just spit you out. And it's hard to hear that because most of us, we walk around and we're lukewarm. We just walk around and we're not on fire for God. But we're not cold either. You know, it's not like ice water. We're just lukewarm. We come to church, we praise a little bit, we listen, and then we walk out and we go right back to sinning. When I was over there, I sat through worship, and it wasn't the greatest worship. You know, it wasn't the you get up there and go, man, I'm at a passion conference. Nope, it wasn't that at all. It was a whole bunch of people who had never been trained on an instrument, who had never learned how to play guitar or drums, and they watched YouTube videos and they go, I can do that. And they just started following along that way. And I started watching and I started listening to the people singing. And I started listening to what they were doing, and they weren't the greatest singers. But the difference was that everybody in here was singing. Everybody in the crowd was singing. They were singing at the top of their lungs. They were, and it wasn't good because they were singing English songs. And I want to remind you of something, is that they don't speak English in the Philippines. You know, they speak, when you get there, so they were doing it for me. They wanted to sing, and they go, because they thought that I was a man of God that was going to help. They would go, we're going to get closer to God through him. He's going to come, and so we got to make him comfortable. And so they sang in English. But all of them did it. All of them. And so when you hear that, and you listen, and you go, yes, why is it that when we come in here and we go to worship, we stand here and we go, I even see the words, and I speak the language that they're in, but we won't sing along. We just stand here and go, yeah, that's how much faith I have. Sing it for me. This is what we expect God to do. I don't have that much faith. Just do it for me. Why are we afraid? You're afraid because you don't apply yourself and start following his plan for your life. You're afraid because you're going, I don't want to be closer to you and I don't have any faith. It's time to stop worrying about what everybody else has and what they're doing and what the person next to you has. What difference does it make? Are they bringing you closer to God? Or are they drowning you away? Are they taking you back from what you're doing? And I hate to tell you this, if your spouse is doing it, then it's time to have a real conversation and go, what are we doing? Because we need to start pursuing this together. We need to grow, and we need to start following the plan that he has for our lives. And you need to have that conversation instead of going, hey, we should talk about that one day. Have that conversation. Talk to one another. Because if you don't talk to one another, you will have trials in your marriage because you are both going two different directions. Have faith in that. Have faith that God can heal. Have faith that he can heal your marriage. Have faith that he can take all. Stop being so afraid. Stop living where you're going, I want to go in my own direction. And I worry about the person next to me because I have to chase after money. Or I have to chase after the next car. Or I have to chase after having the next iPhone or the next thing in my car, or this thing or that thing. None of that's going to matter. In fact, it won't matter in a year what sort of phone you have because guess what? They're going to have a new one. Change your focus and put your faith in something that never changes. Do something different. Why are you so afraid? Why are you living in these lives? Because you're in the storm without his presence. In the storm with his presence for his purpose. Start. If you're going to be in a storm, wouldn't it be better to have him there with you going, I can make it stop. But it's not time yet. You need to learn. I can make it stop, but we're not there yet. It's not time for that. You know, what it really says is, where's your hope anchored at? Is your hope anchored in the boat that can capsize? Or is your hope anchored in Jesus and in God, who's going to carry you through everything? Where is your hope anchored at? Is your hope anchored in God? Or is it anchored in your relationships that never seem to work out because they're always built on something fake? Is it worried about your job, which can go away at any moment? Is it worried? What is your hope focused in? Because mine's not in the boat. Mine's not in the boat. My hope is in Jesus, and that's where I'm going to stay anchored at. And that's where we all need to be at. Because all of this stuff goes away. It just does. It's not going to be there. But my hope and my faith will. And I know that at the end, when I answer, that I'll go, I followed and I was riding storms for you. I was riding them along and I was going through it because that's what you asked me to do. You asked me to go to the other side. You asked me to go through these things, and I did it because I knew that I had no other option and I had no other choice than to follow. Are you following, or are you trying to lead? Because he'll be waiting for you when you come back. He'll be there. He'll be like, hey, well, I'll see you when you get back, buddy. But I'll be here. Stop trying to do it on your own. Start following the plan, and you'll find that happiness and joy follow. And it changes. It doesn't have to be the broken way that it's been. Let's pray. Father, thank you so much. Thank you so much for just everything we're going through, the trials, so that we can develop this perseverance, so that we can grow and so we can do life differently, because right now it's not working when we place our faith in everything else. God, we want to follow you, and we know that there's going to be trials. We know that there's going to be hurt. We know that things are going to go according to your plan, not to ours. And so, God, we ask for your favor, and we ask that you can calm the winds and you can take us to this different level with you. We know that you're in the boat with us. We know that we're traveling along with you, and we ask that you guide us. You lead us. And we have faith that it's in you, and we're going to place it in you instead of in money or in the banks or whatever else is around us, that we just have faith in you and our community and just growing our lives together with you. God, thank you for all that you are doing right now. for the stirring in hearts that you've started right now, for the changes that you're going to make. God, we are so thankful. And all this we pray in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.